Welcome to SmokeHouseStudios.net. The in-studio broadcast feed
The recording has started.
is now live.
Warning. This show is about the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you are easily offended by the truth, then you need to keep listening. His return is drawing near.
SmokeHouseStudios.net. The Front Porch Show. A unique blend of current events and what they might mean. Humbly seen through the eyes of God's Word, the Bible, in an old school front porch discussion with occasional guests, your input, and a guiding hand through Christ. Broadcasting from atop the front porch, it's SmokeHouseStudios.net's The Front Porch Show. Now, carefully blending more smoke goodness in each and every soundbite, your host, Smokehouse.
Hey, hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody, wherever you're located. Smokehouse here, SmokeHouseStudios.net Front Porch Show. Out here on this Saturday night, June the 15th, 2019. Man, what a power-packed show we've got for you tonight. Okay, Chuck, we have gotten our schedules now back in line, and Brother Chuck will be joining us. Now, he is still on special assignment, so he's going to be joining us via the phone tonight, but nonetheless, he'll still be here and offer his genuine input as he always does. So we're glad to have Brother Chuck coming back in with us tonight. Lot to hammer out. You know, the news media has been feeding us a bunch of lies and deceit and disinformation. You know, what does God say? Who does God say that the author of confusion is? It's the devil. The author of confusion is the devil. And we have been being tossed about like a ship on a sea, not knowing one day what's up and the next day what's down. Trump is still working for the people, working for America, and yet, the Democrats are still on their purge to impeach or get rid of this man. Why? What has been going on? What is going on behind the scenes? Well, tonight we're going to take a look at a strong parallel, and when I say strong parallel, let me rephrase myself here. I have a lot of people that argue with me about this, and I'm going to clarify what I'm about to say. We're going to be talking about ancient Babylon and how we are Babylon today. Now, I am not saying that America is Babylon, but I am saying that America is Babylon. I'm also saying that Italy is Babylon. We're in the last days here, folks. And what is going to occur in these days is going to affect the entire globe the same way. God is not coming back in the last days and only bringing his judgment against America, only bringing his judgment against, say, Iran, okay? In the last days, we are all under the gun. We're all under the gun. There is no escaping it. And so we're going to look at some parallels that happened in Babylon that are happening today. And the message for this program will be taken out of Jeremiah chapter 51. But the title of tonight's show is titled Winnow. I didn't say window, like a window you look out of, but Winnow. W-I-N-N-O-W. The title is Winnow. Winnow means to blow a current of air through grain in order to remove the chaff of the wind or to blow. So it is a current of wind that they pass through the grain in order to remove the chaff. What exactly is the chaff? We're in the last days. We are in a harvest. Let me quickly repeat what the wheat harvest is. When you plant wheat and it begins to grow, also what grows with it is a weed called tare, T-A-R-E, tare. And tare looks identical to wheat as it begins to grow. You cannot tell the wheat from the tare apart. They look identical. The only way that you can finally tell the difference between tare and wheat is upon maturity. Because the wheat turns into this voluptuous grain, but the tare begins to start turning brown and withered. And upon the time that it's to harvest wheat, you'll be able to identify the tare. The tare must be separated from the wheat. So this is the first stage of a wheat harvest, to separate the tare from the wheat, because tare is a poisonous weed. If you ingest tare, it causes gastral disturbances, nausea, and if you consume enough of it, it will kill you. So you have to separate the tare from the wheat, and that is the first stage of a wheat harvest, to separate the tare from the wheat. Because if the tare is mixed in with the wheat and you eat it, you will get sick, possibly die. So that's the first stage of a wheat harvest, separating the tare from the wheat. The second stage of a wheat harvest is you have to start shaking the wheat vigorously once you have removed it from the tare. You have to shake the wheat vigorously, and that removes the residual chaff that is on the wheat. They have several different methods of which they accomplish this. They either shake it vigorously, as they did back in the old days, or they blow a current of air across the grain in order to remove this chaff, which is known as winnow, the title of tonight's show. So the reason they do that is so that any residual toxin that has found itself on the wheat, whether it be dust or pollen from, say, the tare, that chaff must be removed so that you don't get sick or die when you eat the wheat. So the second stage of the wheat harvest is to winnow the wheat, blow a current of air across it to remove the chaff, or shake it vigorously to remove it. The third stage of the wheat harvest is the wheat is now clean and healthy and ready to be consumed, and then it is set into a basket with other prosperous wheat. So that is the wheat harvest. That's the parable that we were told about in the Bible about a wheat harvest. And it was a parable told because this is where we are today. We are in the midst of a wheat harvest in the physical sense. What are we seeing happening right now to our nation? This separation that we are witnessing. Call it Republican Democrat, call it conservative socialist, call it good versus evil, call it God and Satan. There is a wedge being driven not only in the middle of this nation, but of the world. The tare is being separated from the wheat. So if we know that tare is poisonous, toxic, and the wheat is good, what are we seeing in the world today that's trying to emulate goodness, that's trying to emulate a prosperous future for us to live in? And what side is poison, is toxic, slaughtering our babies, raping our children's mind with this transgender homosexuality, with this purge of pedophilia? In the physical sense of a wheat harvest today, who is the tare and who is the wheat? And God is separating the tare from the wheat. We've already been going for quite some time now through this first stage. But friends, we are quickly approaching, if we have not already arrived, to the second stage. That is the removing of the chaff, shaking of the wheat, or winnow, to blow a current of air through the grain in order to remove the chaff. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 51. He's speaking about the ancient Babylon and the judgment that God was going to bring against Babylon. This is what the Lord says. See, I will stir up a spirit of a destroyer against Babylon and the people of Leb-Kamai. I will send foreigners to Babylon to winnow her and devastate her land. I will send foreigners to Babylon to winnow her and devastate her land. Now, immediately, when people make reference to us being a modern-day Babylon, see, there you go. God's going to send foreigners in, and they're going to totally obliviate this land, and we're all going to suffer, and that's true in a sense. But interesting, the word winnow is used here. Let's read this again now, knowing what the definition of winnow is. See, I will stir up the spirit of a destroyer against Babylon and the people of Leb-Kamai. I will send foreigners to Babylon to winnow her and devastate her land. So God is going to send foreigners here to blow across our nations in order to remove residual toxins, residual chaff. Okay, keep that in mind. Let's move on. They will oppose her on every side in the day of her disaster. Let not the archer string his bow, nor let him put on his armor. Do not spare her young men. Completely destroy her army. They will fall down slain in Babylon, fatally wounded in her streets. For Israel and Judah have not been forsaken, but their God, the Almighty Lord, through their land, is full of guilt before the Holy One of Israel. Okay. Let's stop right there. I'm going to get a lot of emails and stuff for saying this, but I don't really care. Does this mean that if America is Babylon, that what we're seeing happening on our borders right now is not going to succeed? God's going to allow the enemy to penetrate our nation. They're going to come in here, and every single person in the United States is going to be slaughtered and killed and thrown down and battered and beaten, and they are totally going to consume our land, and we're going to have nothing. That could be a possibility because, as we're going to read on a little bit later, that's exactly what happens. But it's this first part that I want to focus on. Do y'all remember when Trump first got elected, or right around that time? When he was making speeches, he was drinking water. And he was holding the water with both hands, and he was looking ridiculous while he did it, but he was holding a bottle of water with both hands. And then he turned to take a drink of this water, and he drank this bottle of water using both hands, and he looked idiotic doing it. And he did it several times. He just didn't do it once or twice, okay? And the media just had a storm that he's mentally incapacitated. He has dementia. He needs to be removed under the 25th Amendment. Well, there has been some study in the ancient Illuminati, if you will. I hate using that word. But in this deep state purge, it has been said that they act upon symbolism and things of this nature. They speak to each other through gematria. We've covered all of this in past shows. And one of their symbolisms is the one who holds the water in their hand is the emperor, and the one that drinks the water from the hand is the destroyer. So that's their symbolism, okay? The wicked side. You know, if you go to the Bohemian Grove or wherever they meet and have their little seances and their cult rituals, you know, if you were to see something like that, that's what it would mean. Whoever holds water in their hand and then is the emperor, and whoever drinks it is the destroyer. It's something to that effect, okay? Now, allegedly, I'm not saying that I know for a fact, because obviously I don't. I'm just saying allegedly that's what's being reported. So when Trump took office, there was a statement that was made that America is going to be great again because he is going to drain the swamp. We know that Trump is communicating with these people via these gematria methods and other ways that they communicate. Trump knows this. He understands this. And so by him standing at the podium, holding water in both hands, he was telling them that he is the emperor. And then when he drank that water, he was also telling them that he is the destroyer. Let's go back and read Jeremiah 51. See, I will stir up the spirit of a destroyer against Babylon and the people of Leb-Kamai. Okay. Am I saying that this parallel that Trump is the destroyer that God is talking about? No, I am not in any way. But this person or group of people that God has risen up in the ancient Babylon to be a destroyer comes against the entire place of Babylon. Now, in this first part, this is all we're going to focus on for right now. I will send foreigners to Babylon to winnow her and devastate her land. Well, we're seeing foreigners come here, and they're starting to move across our nation. Okay? We're giving them free education. California is just giving them a free ride of medical care, the whole 9 yards. So let not the archer string his bow, nor let him put on his armor. Do not spare her young men, completely destroy her army. They will fall down slain in Babylon. So this is just me thinking out loud here. I know that there is no degree to sin. A sin is a sin. Doesn't matter if it's a white lie or if you go out and murder somebody. In God's rules, a sin is a sin. I get that. But there are things that this tear in our nation that we have elected as leaders. I'm not saying they are our leaders because we are their leaders. I'm just saying we have elected them to represent us in a leadership role. There are things that are about to come out that they have been involved in. We've lightly covered some of it, past shows, but vile, evil, satanic, demonic. Things are going to be coming out. I don't know if we're going to be told all of it, but it's things that will make a billy goat puke, much less the people of America's conscience being seared. And to me, this is like, again, I'm thinking out loud. To me, that's going to invoke God's judgment against something like that or those people a little more than it would a white lie. I'm thinking out loud here. So my question is, could Trump actually be a form of a destroyer that is going to, I'd say, blow across this nation to remove chafe out of this nation? Just a question. Now, as we move on in Jeremiah chapter 51, we're told, flee from Babylon. Run for your lives. Do not be destroyed because of her sins. Okay, well, then if this destroyer is going to come through Babylon and is going to just wreak havoc across all of Babylon, and we're all going to fall under judgment, we're all not going to be able to escape this, then why are we told here to flee Babylon? Why are we told here to flee Babylon so that we're not destroyed because of her sin? Do you see what I'm saying here? If this destroyer is coming in to, well, I'm repeating myself, but you get the idea. So apparently there is an escape for a group of people. It's time for the Lord's vengeance. He will pay her what she deserves. Babylon was a gold cup in the Lord's hand, and she made the whole earth drunk. The nations drank her wine. Therefore, they have now gone mad. Have we gone mad? Not us. We're trying to stay right with God and follow His laws. But has today's modern day Babylon, and I'm not even just narrowing it down to America, has today's modern day Babylon gone mad? We have. The whole world has. Babylon will suddenly fall and be broken. Wail over her. Get balm and her pain. Perhaps she can be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she cannot be healed. Let us leave her, and each go to his own land, for her judgment reaches the skies. It rises as high as the clouds. The Lord has vindicated us. Come, let us tell the Zion what the Lord our God has done. Okay. So apparently here, this massive destruction of Babylon is going to happen, but apparently it's not going to happen to the 100%, because there is a percentage here being told to run and leave so that you do not fall judgment to her sin. And then we're told that the Lord has vindicated us. Come, let us tell the Zion what the Lord our God has done. So, in my opinion, my interpretation, you read it for yourself, you take it to the Lord, see what He tells you, but yes, the Babylons of the world, there's judgment coming, but there is a percentage of those who are going to be able to escape if they obey God's commandments, follow His ways, and look only toward Him. Because Jeremiah has told us, He has vindicated us, and we are the watchmen now. We're the ones that are going out and warning people of what's to come. Now, with me saying that, I am in no way saying that if this is the true interpretation, that once judgment begins to fall, there will not be a speck of dust to fall upon us. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is we are going to have to endure this judgment. The Bible says when it rains on the just and it rains on the unjust. We are not going to be able to escape the factions. Meaning that, well, okay, let's just say that something major happens to America. That, that's God's judgment. That's one form of His judgment, that we are literally have our legs wiped out from under us. Our economy crashes. We can't send goods or food to the rest of the world. Yeah, we're going to suffer here in America, but see, other nations are going to suffer because of this. It's going to cause riots and robbing and raping and killing and all these things. You see what I'm saying? Just because you're a Christian and you're following God does not mean that you're going to be able to escape the results of God's judgment. But God has promised us in Psalms 91, all kind of places in the Bible, if you seek shelter under the wing of the Almighty, that we'll see thousands fall by one side, 10,000s fall, but the angels will be with us, and our feet won't even graze a stone. But yet, we're still going to have to endure and suffer. Okay, we're not out of the woods, is what I'm trying to say. Now, we're going to get a little deeper into Jeremiah as we go. I just kind of wanted to lay the groundwork, and that's why I titled the show Winnow, because is this Make America Great Again, bringing judgment against the corrupt, which, friends, we're already suffering now because the patriots are going after the corrupt in our government. I mean, we're seeing what's happening with these oil tankers being blown up, which we're going to get into a little bit later. We see what is happening with God's judgment upon the rain and the floods that we're seeing in the Midwest. You know, those of us here in this area in the Southeast, we're following God and we're doing what we're trying hard to do what is right and what we're told to do. But the judgment that is coming against Babylon in the form of these floods and us losing our food, we are going to suffer. When food prices go up, if there's food shortages that happen to come, we're still going to suffer. Okay? Meaning, you know, if this judgment of flood that God is sending, all right, if that is raw judgment, even though our house hasn't flooded and we're homeless and suffering bad, we're still going to suffer. We're still going to feel the effects, is all I'm saying. Y'all get the idea. So this patriot movement is what I want to look at. We're seeing the separation of the tariff from the wheat. We're seeing the physical aspects of that, how there is groups being divided now. We have Republican, Democrat, socialist, conservative, whatever you want to call it. But now we move to the shaking of the wheat to remove the residual chaff, this winnow, this current of air being blown across this nation. Because it's being blown. Just when the deep state think that they're out of the woods and they're able to impeach, bam, something else happens. Barr gets elected. At first, it was Whitaker. You know, Whitaker was supposed to be this junkyard dog that would chew the heart out of a decaying animal, you know, and Whitaker, whatever he did behind the scenes, he did it, but nothing happened. And then we get Barr, and then Barr, you know, he used to work for the deep state, and he's all kind of hardcore deep state, but yet it seems now Barr is playing ball on our side of the court. And so Barr's kind of a hardcore junkyard dog now. And then he brings in Durham from Connecticut, and Durham is just like old school, tie ya and fry ya type of person who's digging into all this. And each time a new stage happens, the Russian narrative is tossed out with the bathwater. Now they start going for obstruction. Well, there is no obstruction because there was no crime. Well, that gets thrown out of the window. And so what do they do this week? What's that guy's name? Dean, I believe. They bring this old boy in from the Nixon era who is as credible as Cohen. You know, he's a liar. Just his credibility is that of Cohen. And then they bring him into Congress as a charade. I'm going to break all this down in layman's terms for you. And start questioning him about strategies and techniques and the way things went back during the Nixon era. Do you see a parallel with Trump to insinuate and get the public to believe that, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, what was going on back in the days of Nixon is exactly what Trump is doing, right? That's their narrative. That's their angle now, just to get public opinion to think it's something. No proof now. No proof, but just an insinuation to get them to think that, oh, well, yeah, that does kind of look like what Trump's doing. Yep, he needs to be impeached. Well, the American people they're waking up to this. I mean, I've got friends that are fence-riding Democrats, and when I say fence-riding Democrats, now, you're going to have your group friends who are never going to believe. Man, they are going to be supping from the breast of the deep state to their grave, okay? Those people are lost. They're gone. The strong delusion is on them. It's over with for them, okay? I'm just saying that for the fence riders, those that like to evaluate, they're seeing the forest for the trees, and they're like, come on, man. You did have me going on the Russian narrative, and I was even willing to give you corruption or obstruction, but now he's acting, I ain't buying this. And and when I say fence ride, I know some hardcore fence riders that are like, no, I ain't buying this one. And Trump is playing the game. Now, what did he do this week? Don't worry, friends. I'm going to tie it all in together toward the end of the show. What did he do this week? George Stephanopoulos interviewed him and just blatantly asked him a question. Said, okay, Trump, is it wrong, to talk to a foreign nation to get information? And Trump's like, no, I don't think it's wrong at all. Matter of fact, there ain't nothing wrong with it. Now, if you're just getting information about your opponent that's corrupt, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I mean, if it involves more than that, like, they're doing it to influence an election, well then, yeah, you go to the FBI and you tell the FBI. Oh man, the media ran with that. They're like, would you look at this? He's trying to say there's no collusion, there's no corruption, and then all of a sudden, now he's saying, yeah, it's okay to talk to a foreign nation. That's wrong. See, he's Putin's puppet, people. Why did Trump do that? Why did he get the media to say that it's wrong and it's illegal to even talk about another person with a foreign nation, your opponent? Why did he get the media to come out in this fury of anger and say that it is wrong to do this? Because that's exactly what this Russian dossier was all about. And not only was it about talking to foreign people, air quotes, supposedly, and deferring to Russian agents from the Democrat side, they actually paid money. The Democrats paid money for this fake dossier to ensure it. So if the media is willing to say that, hey, it's illegal to even talk to a foreign government during an election, okay? Even if he's got them to say it. He's got them to say it. So if it is that bad and that wrong to just talk to a foreign nation, well then how wrong and bad is it to actually pay money to this foreign nation in the form of U-1, uranium-1, and then create this fake dossier? Do you see what I'm saying, man? Trump's got them over a barrel on this deal. And that's the best that they can do is pull out some old boy from the Nixon era? I mean, come on, man. You want to talk about grasping at straws and looking like an idiot dangling on a string to even the fence-riding Democrats? They have totally dismantled any bit of hope in bringing Trump to the impeachment table. So what comes next? What comes next is the question. We're going to dive deeper into Jeremiah, folks. You just hang on now. I'm just setting the foundation here. When we come back, we got Brother Chuck with us. We're going to dive into this week's events and how this all ties together. Winnow. There's coming a current of air across the wheat. in order to remove the chaff. So if we are the wheat, if we are the ones that are following God, and He's separating the poisonous ones from us, we're going to be shaken. We're going to be winnowed in order to get the residual chaff out of our nations and out of our lives. But friends, it's a shaking. It's not going to be pleasant. Y'all hang tight. When we get back, we're going to tell you why. Be right back right after this.
Smokehouse.
To talk to Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial 252-380, followed by the pound sign. Call in to join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.
1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say, Peace and security, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape.
The board as of 1967, that will live in
Peace and security.
The lesson of history is that peace and security do not come easily.
Peace and stability that people on all sides long for.
Two states for two peoples living side by side in peace and security is not a vague slogan, but a real necessity for the stability in the entire region.
Israel and Palestinians, they can live side by side in peace and security. This is our vision, and this is our commitment.
Of a new deal, peace and security and friendship.
My hopes and dreams for Israel are to live in peace and security.
Two states living side by side in peace and security. True security for all Israelis. We will also pursue peace between Israel and Lebanon.
In peace and security.
Israel and Syria.
Peace and security.
And a broader peace between Israel and its many neighbors. Must decide whether we are serious about peace and security. To recognize Israel's legitimacy and its right to exist in peace and security. That's how we will find new pathways to peace and security. That is the work that we must do.
In peace and security.
Peace and security and coexistence.
A movement towards peace. If we have this triangle, economy, security, and peace, then peace can succeed.
Our government is talking now about peace and security. Peace and security with Israel. Wake up, people.
All right, I've played that piece for a reason. Because we've always assumed that peace and security was going to be focused on Israel. But could it also be focused on other things? Once we get on into the program and we talk about this Iran deal, I'm going to share you something a little alarming, okay? A little alarming. But we have finally, after months of being or eluding us. No, I'm not going to say eluding us. He wasn't eluding us. He's a busy man, just like we all are. But tonight we have Brother Chuck with us on the phone from a secret location in the bunkers down in somewhere in the southern hills of Tennessee. Hello, Brother Chuck. How you doing?
Good, man. Good to be with you.
Well, man, it's good to have you back. Where in the world have you been?
I can't tell you. On a secret mission.
Oh my goodness! Well, you know, you finally get me all lathered up and excited about having a producer, and then you have to take him away. What's been going on with you, old bud?
Oh man, just the everydays. Been doing a lot of just cleaning, and a lot of yard work, and just trying to be a godly dad. Be there, spend time with family, and. We just been doing a lot of praying about a lot of stuff in our lives, just really wanting God to just really make himself not real, because God is real, but just show himself, very clearly in our lives as far as in the things that we're needing. And he's just been working on me about trusting him and praying with purpose, believing that he'll do it. Because it's really easy to just kind of like, God, please do this. And then it doesn't happen. And a day or two later, you're like, okay, forget it. Because you just got to do something. But it's so hard when you pray, to continue to pray, believing he's going to do it, even when you don't see anything happening. And just because you know that he's faithful to answer your prayers when you pray according to his will. And his will is for all of us to be out of debt, no debt to any man, but the continuing debt of love. And so that's kind of what one of my prayers is, because we got some stuff going on financially, but it's just like a lot of people do. A lot of our listeners are probably in the same boat with their So,
well, Chuck, I know the feeling, man. We've had a lot of travesties kind of fall our way in the last couple of weeks. One of these days we can sit down and drink some coffee at Starbucks with our T-shirts. I can tell you about it. Hey, Chuck, man, if you don't mind kind of moving maybe to a different area, because
sure.
Yeah, your signal is just absolutely terrible.
Cutting out really bad.
Yeah, that secret bunker, we must have it. We must have
Hello?
it. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
All righty, good deal. We got you back. Well, Chuck, what we're going to be talking about right now, first of all, with your finger on the pulse, man, if you had to summarize this week, how would you go about it?
That's kind of a hard question, because there's just so much going on. I don't even know if you could actually put a tag on it other than just crazy. So that's kind of a general word. It doesn't really, but I just feel like there's just so much going on with, it's very predictable in some ways, because we know that they don't have anything on Trump, and all the things, like you were saying, all the things that they're blaming him for are exactly what they're doing. So we got their number. So the fact that they're, like you said, throwing out old dinosaurs out there to try to do something, is just kind of ridiculous, because they have nothing. They have nothing against them. So.
Well, that's kind of my theory and my evaluation of the issue. And what's really interesting here is we've seen Trump long enough to know that when he's working on something behind the scenes that he don't want the media messing with, and he don't want anybody messing with, he comes out and says the most outlandish, erroneous things.
Yeah.
That just come out of nowhere to keep the media in this tizzy, so
right.
that they'll just go on this rampage, talking about this erroneous thing that he brought up, and then behind the scenes he can be working diligently on what he's dealing with, and he won't have to be interfered with by the media. You follow what I'm saying?
It's pretty genius.
Oh yeah, I mean it's actually just perfect. And by him
right. coming
out and saying, "Oh yeah, it's okay to talk to a foreign nation, and if it's that bad, yeah, tell the FBI." And I mean, they just won't shut up about it. And,
right.
and I guarantee you, when I get off here and turn on Judge Janine tonight, and then Greg Gutfeld, because if y'all don't watch Greg Gutfeld, you're missing out, man. That guy cracks me up. But that's what they're going. That's what they're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
We know what CNN's going to be talking about.
Right.
Don Lemon, as Tucker Carlson calls him, Don Lemon says, he's like, this is a travesty. This is terrible for our democracy.
Right.
It's almost,
they're so concerned about democracy. You can tell by listening to them.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's first on their agenda, isn't it? Well, okay, Chuck, here's what I want to dive into. I don't know if you caught the first part of the show, but we titled the show Winnow, W-I-N-N-O, because it's in Jeremiah chapter 51, where God said he is going to send a destroyer into Babylon to destroy the wicked, bring judgment against the wicked. They're going to have foreigners come in, and they're going to winnow the land of Babylon, which means to blow a current of air across grain to remove the chaff.
Right.
And so what I'm getting at is this a physical, political thing that we're witnessing here. The chaff being those corrupt in our government. Is this winnow in the process of taking place to remove that poison, that toxin, from this land? And Trump has gone to England to meet with the Queen.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was a bad thing to do. The media found all kind of things that he did wrong when he did that. But I have been trying to really follow why he did this. And, Chuck, I want to share this with you and the listeners, and just bear with me while I get this out.
All right.
And then we can discuss it. But Trump is always telling us the economy is good, the economy is good, the economy is good. And, we have all kind of people coming out saying there's going to be an economic collapse. This bubble can't keep rising, and something's going to have to give, and blah blah blah. Well, folks, I'm just going to bold-faced tell you, man. Chuck and I both are in a. Chuck, let me ask you.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Do you have enough work? Are you working many hours of overtime?
Well, I work. I'm right now working part-time, but I did 44 hours last week. So I did, and that was just because my boss didn't want to get in more trouble because I'm technically considered part-time. So they could have worked with me probably another 8 or 10 hours that day. So
okay. So you, like me, are in the transportation industry, and you have adjusted your life, and you're only doing this part-time. And so while you're working part-time, you're working overtime, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was just Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, I guess that was 4 days: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So,
all right. Well, I can assure you, in my career, which we have remotely the same career, I'm being run like a scalded dog, okay? And Chuck, you know as well as I do, you're in the building industry, I'm in the transportation industry, that if there is a burp, if there is a hiccup in the economy, we're the first ones to know it.
Yep.
I mean, when excuse this, but when the sewer breaks, we're the first one that's going to catch it when it rolls down the hill. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because you figure with the economy is a matter of buying and selling. So if you're right on the transportation end of the buying and selling of goods, you're especially going to feel it if people don't buy. Then all of a sudden you don't drive. So
right,
yeah, I would agree with that.
And even if there is something like that looming, okay. We would be able to interpret that by the way the shippers and receivers are gathering in all they can, making the hay while the sun shines,
Yeah.
And they're not doing that. They're not trying to just gather everything they can. Man, the economy's rolling, money's flying, and things are moving, and they are pushing us. So there you go. So Chuck's working part-time this week, but he had to work 4 hours overtime while he was part-time. So my point is since we're the thermostat here, I don't listen to Don Lemon when he tells us that Trump's fixing to crash the economy, okay? Because if that was the case, we would see it first. But anyway, so he goes to England and he meets with the Queen, and I've been trying to research a lot of what that was really all about, and I've been hearing all kind of different reports from different people. And so I contacted Sister Sherry, and she shared something with me that was very interesting. And so we're going to kick off the current events with this, okay?
Yeah.
Since 1606, the cabal's 3 city-states, the District of Columbia, London, and the Vatican, have ruled over the U.S. and the world economic system. Now, in 1810, the U.S. was enslaved to the King of England. In 1815, the Rothschilds took over the stock market. In 1871, the U.S. incorporated itself, and it was incorporated so that it could function outside of the Constitution.
Oh, wow.
In 1933, the U.S. filed bankruptcy. But it was in 1936 that Social Security was formed to pledge the people as collateral to the Rothschild bankers. But it was actually June the 4th, 1963, when President John F. Kennedy, he signed an executive order, and I want you to keep this in mind, Executive Order 11110, and this gave the U.S. Treasury the ability to issue its own monies instead of relying on flat Federal Reserve notes. And after Kennedy was buried, those $4 billion in silver notes were pulled out of circulation and destroyed, except for some collector samples. But Kennedy's executive order has been rescinded or voided. Kennedy's executive order has never been rescinded or voided, yet would not be implemented for another 55 years. When in preparation for a gold asset-backed standard. And President Trump, March of 2018, he introduced this bill known as H.R. 5404. Now, you can look all of this up. In 1971, President Nixon signed an order whereby the U.S. abandoned the gold standard. Now, how interesting that we're talking about this timeline here, and Nixon's all over this one. And they just had that old boy in front of Congress this week. But anyway, October the 10th of 2000, Freedom from Debt Nessera law was passed. That passed the U.S. Supreme Court was signed into law by President Bill Clinton, and though he did so only under gunpoint of Delta Force. Now, Nessera has not been implemented by any U.S. president since until Donald Trump. Now, in 2012, the Federal Reserve's 100-year mandate has expired. March of 2018, President Trump returned the U.S. to a gold standard U.S. note, the USN, by reverting Nixon's executive order via instruction of his H.R. Bill 5404. The public disclosure of the USN would occur after Nessera and Gessera was announced. And then, August 8th of 2018, President Trump signed the Zadaria Amendment Bill. Now, this Zadaria Amendment Bill, its Zimbabwe bond notes would convert into legal tender on a 1-to-1 with the U.S. dollar. And the new CIPS monetary system began running parallel to the cabal's SWIFT monetary system. And look at what has been going on now in Zimbabwe. We'll get back to that. January the 28th of 2019, we have Trump now calling at his State of the Union address or his first State of the Union address, that he's going to keep Gitmo open. And we're getting prepared for what appears to be tribunals to take place, and people are going to go to Gitmo. That's why they know it's coming. There's no stopping it. Barr has brought in, gentleman's name just slipped my mind, now, Durham. He brought in Durham to do just that. The IG report, the OG, PG, RG, whatever you want to call them, this is going to come out. The FISA documents, everything. Trump has ordered it to be released, and we're waiting on the release, okay? So, man, there's a lot of things happening. Anyway, I'm getting somewhere with this. April of 2019, the IRS has officially shut down. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe officially decoupled its local currency from the U.S. dollar, naming the new currency the RTGS dollar with the symbol ZWL, known as Zulu Whiskey Lima. Saturday, May the 18th, 2019, RV trigger pulled. Saturday, May 25th, 2019, the Iraq dinar officially revalued in country. So the Iraqi dinar, or dinar, how you pronounce it, it has officially revalued. Now,
Wow.
and this is going to take us into Iran here in just a little bit, but then Tuesday, May the 28th of 2019, the new gold asset-backed U.S. Treasury note, the USTN, went live in the U.S. at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time after the market closed. Saturday, June the 1st, 2019, there were 209 nations. Now, I want y'all to listen to this. Saturday, June the 1st, just a mere 14 days ago, there were 209 nations which met in Europe to put their stamp on the global currency reset. Zimbabwe's RTGS currency became internationally recognized then. And then Monday, June the 3rd, Queen Elizabeth signed papers that handed back to the people U.S. Incorporated British Crown, Vatican Central Bank's control over U.S. taxpayer monies and the global monetary system. The bond market, stock market, Deutsche Bank implosions began, while the U.S. converted from a flat dollar to a gold asset-backed U.S. Treasury note, the USTN. Rumor was that the Chinese bought out Deutsche Bank. Chinese buys debt, but, that's the rumor. And then we move to the conclusion to Thursday, June the 6th of 2019, D-Day. The Queen signed papers with President Trump, who then declared that the U.S. was hostage no more to the British Crown and the secret societies. This historic bond and Zim redemption took place in Zurich, Hong Kong, and London.
Wow.
So this is what Trump has been doing behind the scenes. Wow. While we, on the surface, have been witnessing all of this chaos, witnessing this Winnow, a destroyer coming to blow across the wheat, the good of this nation, to remove the residual chaff. What say you, Chuck?
That's pretty incredible. I'm just kind of like absorbing what you said. I'm just like, wow, it's got some pretty massive implications, for a lot of different things. But I think that what comes to my mind is the fact that this is great in some ways, as far as, just getting back to, you're saying back to a gold standard. Because you know history a lot better than I do, as far as, with the gold standard and, with us actually used to have gold that was backing our dollar. And then now it's, or I should say now, but then for a long time until just recently, it was all basically just loan it out, just keep the money moving. It was like really not backed by anything.
Yeah.
So just that alone obviously has affected our economy, boosted our economy a lot, his policies and then now this. So, I don't know, bro. I think I just have to think about it a little bit before I respond too much more.
Well,
I'm just kind of taking it all in. I'm like, wow.
Well, Trump, he all he does is come out and say, well, I'm bringing jobs back, and that's why the economy's booming.
Right.
I'm companies are leaving China. We're putting these tariffs and blah blah blah, and that's what he's on the surface saying. But
yeah.
I don't sit down with Trump and talk about the things that he does. This is just a report that I was sharing, and so obviously I don't know for a fact if this is the case. But what I can tell you is that Chuck and I. We're the first port in the storm when the gates open. And if something with the economy is coming that's going to be bad, we would know it first. And it's not happening. Chuck is working part-time and still working overtime.
Yeah, you got to figure 44 hours technically overtime. Full-time is, I think, I think it's 32, or is it anything over 32, or anything over 34 hours is supposed to be full time or something like that. So I'm actually, that would be overtime for full time. So I'm actually beyond 4 hours because I'm technically, 40 hours would already be over part-time, and then there's 44. So like I said, the only reason I was able to go home was because he didn't want to get in too much trouble for working me over 44 when I'm only part-time. He's already going to get in trouble, but he's like, I better let you go.
Right.
He didn't want me to go because there was plenty of work still to do. So
right. Well, I want to share this that Brother Pat shared, because he hit the nail on the head. That's where I was going. He said, is it possible that the separation of the wheat and the chaff is not geographic? It is with worship. Interesting theory, man.
You said with worship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
Yeah. God says, look at the big picture. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Separating the wheat from the chaff politically, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And could the onslaught of Muslims be the flood? Yeah, I think this onslaught of our border situation and our Muslim influx into our Congress is exactly what that is. And furthermore, the parts of the fake dossier were written in 2007, because remember, it was wasn't it like a story that was written? Man, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. It was they call it a P-gate dossier, like where I won't go into the details about it just because of the show, but I guess something about it had to do with something about prostitution and something about urine. Like I said, I don't want to share the details just because I know there's probably a lot of different people listening. But if you look into it, that's basically the gist of kind of and it was a fake. It was a fake dossier. It wasn't even a legitimate thing that they were doing. They were basically saying, "Hey, we're accusing Trump of this, and because of this, we can get a thing to spy on him." Was it a FISA document or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, that's
to
what
spy on him.
That's what the dossier was. But I mean, it was a story that was written in the past that they have just resurrected and just changed the names and.
I got you.
Yeah, but anyway, he asked a question. What comes next? George Soros buys a lot of violence between now and then in the election. Yeah, it was a story written. Thank you, Pat. So we're seeing Winnow. That's all that I'm getting at. Now, with that being stated, last week, Chuck, I reported that Hillary Clinton's brother died. Did you hear about that?
I heard that. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Okay. Hillary Clinton's brother died. Now, the reason I say that this could be some credible information that we're sharing is because we are witnessing tankers being blown up, blamed on Iran, not just once, but several times.
Yeah.
And we're going to share what Pompeo said about that. And now it's like we're on suicide watch, man. We saw...
the NYPD cops you're talking about?
Well, yeah. Now the NYPD cops, we saw the two senators from Arkansas and Oklahoma. And now Hillary Clinton's brother. Well, I'm going to share you something. Now, listen, I'm just going to share you something that Daniel put out this week, okay? And what he put out blew my mind. We've been hearing of police chiefs in New York being executed, shot in the head while they're sitting in their car, okay? We have all these people dying now in the Dominican Republic. I haven't researched really who these people are, if they're just random people or if they have some association with something, okay? I will keep digging for that and hook y'all up when I find out. But with that being said, I want you to listen. Now, this is a little lengthy, but you got to pay attention. This is important. This is science. This is the Winnow. Is this air blowing across the wheat to remove the chaff? Check this out.
Over the past 72 hours, or over that weekend, 10 different people have been found shot and murdered. And we're going to go over all of those right now in this video because I just want to compile them all in one place. I still don't understand why all of them have been murdered, but we're going to list them. So, first of all, we have the Senator Linda Collins. Then we have this other senator from Oklahoma. That was Senator Jonathan Nichols. Both found shot in the head within just a couple of days of each other last week. Then the other two that I reported on also last week was the Deputy Chief Stephen Silks. Just a month before retirement, found dead, and he was a deputy chief in the NYPD. And then also, Joseph Calabrese, or Calabrese, however you pronounce his name. He was a homicide detective in the NYPD. And so he too was found dead, and they're basically saying it was a suicide. Okay, again, all of this happening just right on top of each other. Now, we've got even more. We've got a Dante Austin. He was a deputy in Philadelphia. And this guy also was a huge LGBTQ advocate. He was found murdered. We also have a Texas police chief. His name is Chris Reed. This one's really bizarre. He was on a boat off the coast of Texas, and he was thrown overboard. And so the Coast Guard is searching for him, and I don't know if they found him or not, but he's presumed missing. Then we have Lola Gulomaba. She is the Commerce Department and previously worked for NASA and the World Bank. She was found dead over the last 72 hours. Of course, you can't forget the big one, which is Tony Rodham, Hillary Clinton's brother. And Tony Rodham has been involved in a lot of the corruption involving the Clintons and involving the Clinton Foundation, particularly the stuff that has been going on in Haiti. And if you've watched my channel or any other channels, you've seen about the child sex trafficking, human trafficking that's been going on in Haiti for quite some time. Number 9, I'm going to run out of room here. Then we have Herb Sandler. Now, Herb Sandler, I don't know a lot about. Other than that, and again, this is from a posting on Reddit from 2 years ago. But basically, there's a thread about Herb Sandler of the Sandler Foundation and how he sent an email to John Podesta on Christmas Eve that seemed to be coded in that human child trafficking code that they use involving pizza and cheese and things like that. So Herb Sandler was also found dead, and he seems to have some sort of connections to Pizzagate from back in 2015, 2016, which implicated a lot of DC officials in child sex trafficking. And then for number 10, we have this German politician. His name is, last name is Lubke, Lubcke. He's part of the German Christian Democratic Union, part of Angela Merkel's administration. He was very pro, mass migration. He wanted basically Europe to be flooded with migrants. So you look at all these people, and I don't pretend to know why all these people have wound up dead in the past 72 hours. It's quite a list. But it seems to be a mixture of good guys. I mean, we know Linda Collins, for example, was a very, very good guy. She was a strong Christian. And, of course, as I reported last week, she was investigating a lot of the corruption going on in CPS. So she was definitely a good guy. But then also some really shady characters, some really bad guys. I mean, Tony Rodham, who's connected to Hillary Clinton's, all the nefarious stuff going on in Haiti. Herb Sandler, who seems to be connected to Pizzagate. Lupke, who is very, very pro Angela Merkel and wanting basically open borders for Germany and for the European Union. You have some murders that have been done. What it appears to me, and again, this is just me spitballing because I don't know for sure, but it appears that the black hats have gone through trying to murder different people, whether good guys or bad guys, in an effort to try to hide a lot of their illegal activities because they know the hammer is about to drop. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, why can't the Patriots at Q protect the good guys or even the bad guys? All I know is that, Q has mentioned in the past that they're watching. They're watching. The Patriots are watching. The NSA is watching. And so all of these deaths, whether they're good guys or bad guys that have been offed here by the deep state black hats, they're going to probably be used as evidence against them, is all I can say. And, we're living in a war right now, a spiritual war. Things are very, very dangerous. We know that. And so, the deep state is not going to give up without a fight. And so it seems like this is like a huge mop-up operation that the deep state is attempting to try to prevent people from knowing all the different illegal activities that are going on. So again, I don't know exactly how all of these people are connected, but I wanted to make just one video where I listed all of them so that people will know what exactly is going on.
So that was just in a 72-hour period, this week. Now I know Rodham, I think, was last week, but Chuck, you see what we're saying here. We're seeing evidence now that there could be this wind blowing to remove the chaff. There, see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know what I think of. I think of remember old Weiner, Anthony Weiner. Remember when he was caught texting, or they could call sexting, sending pictures of himself to underage girls, and then they arrested him and confiscated his computer. And then come to find out that, Huma Abedin had a lot of the Hillary's deleted emails supposedly on that computer that was in possession of the new NYPD. And then all the people started going crazy. The Democrats saying you need to let go of that computer, let us have it. And they got in a back and forth right there. With the I think it must have been like in the courtroom or something like that when they were talking about how they needed to let go of the computer, and the police said, this is an investigation. We're not doing that.
Right. And
they got mad and said, well, just to let you know, there's going to be consequences.
Right.
So that's what first pops into my head because I'm thinking New York Police Department, all these people are dying. And then I think back to when they said that there's going to be consequences because they've got the laptop. So that's what pops into my head immediately when I hear about all those police officers getting, supposedly committing suicide. So.
Well, exactly right. And that's the whole point I'm getting at. And I'm glad that you brought that up because those things were said. And what did Pelosi say just not too long ago, that in their movement of what they're trying to move forward and push this socialist Democrat communist progression, she says, if there's collateral damage, then so be it. So it looks like that this fight has now become, I was unaware of many of those deaths. I mean, I knew of a few, but, and I hate to change gears real quick, friends, I really do. But listen, very, very serious. We have just had, with, it happened right in the middle of when Daniel was telling us about these deaths. 7.4 earthquake has hit the Kermadec Islands north of New Zealand in the Pacific Ocean. It's a 7.4. There is a tsunami warning that has been issued for parts of the Pacific after the earthquake. It was a 7.4 magnitude that struck those islands, And if a tsunami does hit New Zealand, it is not predicted for another 2 hours. So, everybody in that area, I know we have listeners in Australia. I have seen New Zealand hit a time or two, but that tsunami warning may be in place for parts of the Pacific after that earthquake had struck. New Zealand's Minister of Civil Defense and Emergency Management issued a beach warning telling locals to expect unusually strong hazardous currents and unpredictable surges near the shore. Like I said, this just happened, not just 5-10 minutes ago. And primarily, investigations suggest New Zealand may avoid the tsunami, but Kiwis are urged to take care near the foreshore. So apparently, well, they said that the severity of currents and surges and tide may be unpredictable in the coming hours. But if it does hit, like they said, it won't hit for another couple hours. So if y'all are listening to us in that area, buddy, take cover, man. God is shaking. He's shaking the nations. He's shaking us up. It's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. He's already separated the tare from the wheat, and now comes the vigorous shaking. Yep. And it's happening. So, anyway, those are the deaths. You know, we're seeing evidence. That's what I'm getting at. We're seeing evidence now of some very serious things possibly about to surface in the coming weeks because they're getting ready. I mean, they're wow.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, that's kind of their world. The whole political realm is kind of what they've kind of based their whole life around. So it's not around the truth. It's about, that's like their control.
Right.
These people have been in control for a very long time. It's passed down from from kind of within the same family almost. There's been other families that have obviously kind of come in there because of influence that they've gotten, and they're always, I'm sure, looking for new recruits, to join their team. But especially if they've got money and power. So, because they want their money and power. But it's, it's crazy because it's crazy, but it's really in a lot of ways not that like unbelievable because we just know the way they operate. I mean, man without God wants to rule the whole earth, and they want to subdue everybody and put them in slavery just because that makes them feel good. It's like, so if you have all this money and power, I mean, you're not gonna go down without a fight. They're like, this is what I live for. I live for money. I live for influence over people. I live for getting what I want. So, I mean, it's almost like you think about like a full-grown child freaking out. I mean, they can do just about anything. They'll destroy anything, throwing a tantrum. It's just they have an ability to throw a very large tantrum.
Yeah, a very large, damaging tantrum.
Exactly.
Well, okay, and this brings me to Iran now. Okay. Y'all remember back when McCain was still alive and allegedly, have to say that, allegedly he was... He was brokering the deal of pieces of that uranium-1 into Syria, so because Iran allegedly had that secret nuclear base in Syria that they were building a nuclear warhead with that nobody even knew about. Now, the theory, and we're really not going to know for sure, but the theory is that Iran was going to make this nuclear warhead out of this uranium that was sold to Russia because uranium has a fingerprint. And then Iran make this warhead out of that uranium nobody knew about, and then it detonates off in a major city somewhere, and they go back and they look at the fingerprint of where this uranium come from. It points right to Russia. Boom, blame Russia, war's on, and here you go. Allegedly. But then Netanyahu comes out, and he has, remember he gave that big speech where he had that big case behind him where he had all the documents and all of the CDs and everything that they confiscated from Iran, and basically told Iran, your days are numbered. We got your whole plans. We got it all. You remember that, Chuck?
Yeah, some of it I do.
All right. Well, so anyway, Since that time, Iran, through their proxies, Hezbollah and all those down in Gaza, has just been firing missile after missile. As a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, Israel got hit again by 2 more missiles, and there was like a lot of damage that was actually done. So then Iran, we pulled out of the nuclear deal and sanctioned Iran, and then now Iran's threatening to shut off our oil, and now we're having these tankers, being blown up over in the Mideast, and everybody's pointing the finger at Iran, okay? Mm-hmm. That caused me to step back and take a look at something, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, allegedly, what we're being told is that Trump is in the process of removing the CIA ties that they have with all of these regions, i.e. Syria. Okay, that's why we're pulling our troops out of Syria, because working in unison with Israel, the CIA ties have been removed from Israel, i.e. North Korea. The CIA was pulling the strings in North Korea, and so they pull the strings, the CIA ties, they pull it out of North Korea, but they're in the process now of removing the CIA ties with Iran. And that is where we are now. And I don't believe that the CIA ties have been officially removed from Iran. Have you heard anything about that happening, Chuck?
I haven't. It's just such an incredible, intriguing thing that's going on, because there's, like we always say, there's so many moving parts. It's incredible because you think about all these people have been functioning, all these CIA, different operatives, and they've been able to kind of just do whatever they want, and do so much corruption, like what we were talking about, the whole Lolita Express, and I mean, who knows how many of these agents are also pedophiles and, are kind of in on all this stuff. And then, so it's crazy, because you think that then the good guys that are in the CIA that maybe have been kind of sucked into some of this bad stuff, they probably wanted to get out of it because the leadership has been so corrupt, that's been in Washington, D.C., that even if they wanted to get out of it, they couldn't, and if they did, it's crazy, because with Trump in there now going after all of these people who, the Trump administration, all these patriots going after all these pedophiles and different people. I think that some of the people, I can't help but think that some of them have recognized how bad they've been, but not had anybody that was good in power to kind of go, hey, I want to get out of this, and maybe gave the information to them, like help them find the bad people. So I wish I could see all the moving parts that are going on and see who's been, like doing good stuff that used to do bad stuff. And I would love to see that. I'd love to see all this. I mean, I wish I had access to the stuff that God has access to see it all play out. But it's also encouraging to me, because I know we're getting closer to the end when the Lord does come back, and he's going to right all of the stuff that's so bad. So I can't help but think, even though we look at politics as being like the main thing, because that's kind of what's all over TV, and that's kind of affects all of us in so many ways, it's really the spiritual side that's really the most important. And that's like the Lord is, I can just see he's kind of at the end of, okay, I'm going to tolerate so much, and now it's time for the justice to come. It's time for people to be brought to justice. And so it's really the Lord that's doing all of this stuff through all of these people. So,
right. And Brother Pat reminded us that they will be known by their fruit. We're told that in Matthew 7:16. And so with all the deaths that we're seeing, the uprise, the removal of the CIA ties, Trump now taking care of us being tied to England, now Iran is in the crosshairs. Now, I have been listening to a lot of my prophecy watchers and watchmen, and I do not disagree with them, because what they're saying is this upcoming battle that's going to ensue with Iran is going to be a nasty one, and we're not going to be spared from it if missiles start flying. I totally agree with that. But I I do not think, where I disagree with them, or I wouldn't say disagree, but where I'm looking at this a little differently is that possibly maybe, the CIA tie removal is, they've got such a stronghold on Iran that it is going to get nasty. Now, is it going to usher in and kick off a major battle? It could. I'm not saying it's not. This is a dangerous time that we're in here, okay? But I want you to hear what Pompeo said this week in regards to this latest tanker that has been blown up. Here we go.
This is only the latest in a series of attacks instigated by the Islamic Republic of Iran and its surrogates against American and allied interests. And they should be understood in the context of 40 years of unprovoked aggression against freedom-loving nations. On April 22nd.
Okay, before we continue with this, during that first break, I played that clip where, 1 Thessalonians 5:3, when you hear them say peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. And I came off that break, and I had mentioned that, we've been like kind of gearing that and looking at that toward Israel itself, but could it mean Iran and Israel as a whole? Because pay attention to the terms peace and security as you listen to Mike Pompeo.
On April 22nd, Iran promised the world that it would interrupt the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. It is now working to execute on that promise. In early May, the Revolutionary Guard Corps attempted the covert deployment of modified dhows capable of launching missiles. On May 12th, Iran attacked 4 commercial ships near the Strait of Hormuz. On May 14th, Iran-backed surrogates attacked by armed drones struck 2 strategically important oil pipelines in Saudi Arabia. On May 19th, a rocket landed near the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. On May 31st, a car bomb in Afghanistan wounded 4 U.S. service members, killed 4 Afghan civilians, and wounded bystanders. Yesterday, Iranian surrogates fired a missile into Saudi Arabia, striking the arrivals terminal of an international airport, injuring 26 people. Taken as a whole, these unprovoked attacks present a clear threat to international peace and security, a blatant assault on the freedom of navigation, and an unacceptable campaign of escalating tension by Iran. Prime Minister Abe made a historic trip to Iran to ask the regime to de-escalate and enter into talks. Iran's supreme leader rejected Prime Minister Abe's diplomacy today by saying he has no response to President Trump and will not answer. The supreme leader's government then insulted Japan by attacking a Japanese oil tanker just outside of Iranian waters, threatening the lives of the entire crew, creating a maritime emergency. Iran's foreign minister today responded to these attacks. He said sardonically, quote, "Suspicious doesn't begin to describe what likely transpired this morning," end of quote. Foreign Minister Zarif may think this is funny, but no one else in the world does. Iran is lashing out because the regime wants our successful maximum pressure campaign lifted. No economic sanctions entitle the Islamic Republic to attack innocent civilians, disrupt global oil markets, and engage in nuclear blackmail. The international community condemns Iran's assault on the freedom of navigation and the targeting of innocent civilians. Today I've instructed our UN Ambassador Jonathan Cohen to raise Iran's attacks in the UN Security Council meeting later this afternoon. Our policy remains an economic and diplomatic effort to bring Iran back to the negotiating table at the right time, to encourage a comprehensive deal that addresses the broad range of threats. Threats today apparent for all the world to see, to peace and security. Iran should meet diplomacy with diplomacy, not with terror, bloodshed, and extortion. The United States will defend its forces, interests, and stand with our partners and allies to safeguard global commerce and regional stability. And we call upon all nations threatened by Iran's provocative acts to join us in that endeavor. Thank you.
Okay, Chuck, so just in a quick 3-minute speech, he said peace and security twice in 3 minutes.
Yep.
Now, Obviously, what this is really about is possibly the CIA removal of, the CIA ties in Iran. Now, allegedly, it was Iran that has attacked these tankers, but many now are saying that it wasn't Iran, that this was mines that were placed on the tanker by a certain group, okay, of the Iranian regime, okay? It wasn't necessarily the Iranian military. So what I'm allegedly saying here is allegedly, could this be the deep state now taking this battle now that they see that Trump is able to succeed in removing their ties to these other nations, that Trump actually has... They have cause for concern now with Iran, and they cannot lose Iran, because if they lose Iran, then their goose is cooked. Okay, now I'm setting the stage here for the next part of Jeremiah. We're going to go into a little overtime because I got a little bit more to cover. Okay, now Chuck, the reason that I'm saying this is because Brother Dabu 7 has reported something very interesting. They arrested Assange, and he's been in UK custody, and many people saying that UK is going to kill him and all this, but Trump goes over and meets with the Queen and does all that we talked about him doing, and then now listen to the latest report coming out about Assange.
We're getting word today that the British Home Secretary has signed an extradition order for Julian Assange to go back to the United States. He had revealed that he signed this because they have requested this, and he feels it is the proper thing to do. He says there are 17 counts lined up against him where he is accused of violating the Espionage Act. Now, I've talked about Assange in great detail many times. But what this Home Secretary goes on to say is that he's rightly behind bars, that there is this request from the United States. It's going to go before the courts tomorrow because he had just signed this himself. He said he signed it yesterday. He certified it, and the courts are more than likely going to push this through. This is Theresa May's government. It has everything in disarray already in the UK. And with these 17 new charges against the journalist, you can add that to the other one where they're saying he conspired with Chelsea Manning to hack into Pentagon servers and all this other stuff, into the U.S. Pentagon network. So this is the latest here. I will update after Congress makes its move there, and we'll see where it goes from there. But I'm going to leave a link below. Follow me on Twitter for more breaking news, and also over on DLive for...
Okay, so Assange is coming to the United States. And look at how chaotic the deep state is acting. Now, I know he's coming to face these charges, but he's going to have a lot to talk about while he's being interviewed.
Yeah. But it's kind of interesting because it's like you don't really know what's going on. Like there's so many, you can see what, from the outside what's going on, but you know that the people involved are very smart on both sides, more on the good side than the bad side. I don't know, that would be pretty exciting because part of you thinks, oh no, Julian Assange, and he's such a good guy. He's people who know Julian Assange as far as, been following him and reading his stuff, knows that he's a very legitimate journalist. They really go through a lot of effort to make sure that they're not releasing information that's going to hurt somebody, like damage them, like put their lives in danger, or something bad would happen to them. So I don't know. I look at it and I know that Assange, at least from what I know of him, what he's done, he's not guilty of stuff, but what they're saying he is.
Well, here's the thing, Chuck. You remember when Assange was doing the exact same thing, and he was coming out and bringing this information out about the Bush administration. Well, Romeo he was there, Juliet. You know, and and now
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but now that the shoe's on the other foot, well, now he's a problem. Okay, so let's. All I'm doing is just adding things together here. We got Barr bringing Durham on board. We got the OG, IG, and PG, and all these reports about to drop. We got Horowitz on the move, and we've got that fella from Utah. Can't think of his name now, but he's still lingering in the background. And now we got Julian Assange to be extradited back to the United States, and now they're blowing up our oil tankers. My theory, allegedly, it appears to me that they are trying to start a conflict, a major battle with Iran in order to head off what is coming. So
it's part of their insurance policy, right?
Right.
Another leg of their insurance policy because the other ones are breaking. So
right. All right. Well, hang tight, Chuck. We're going to bring a caller on the phone. She has some information for us, and man, I hadn't talked to her. Well, we haven't talked to her in quite some time, so we'll go ahead and bring her on. Sister Lisa down there in Georgia, you're on the Front Porch Show. How you doing, girl?
Grateful.
Do what?
I said grateful to be alive.
Oh, I hear you, man. Glad to have you. What's going on with you?
Actually, on my birthday 2 weeks ago, I ended up having a heart attack.
Well, I saw that on Facebook. That old cardiac vortex done got you, didn't it?
Yeah, it done got me. It done got me. I was reading too much Democratic stuff that kind of threw me over the edge there.
Hey, well, you need to go back and listen to last week's show, man. I had that Democratic chafe get in my throat and choke me all up, and I couldn't hardly talk.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, well, how are you?
Yeah,
hang on.
I had something interesting here.
Well, hang on before you get there, girl. We're going to have to find out how you're doing now, because you got me worried. How you been?
I'm good. I'm really good. I didn't even realize I was having a heart attack. I thought I was having severe heartburn because it didn't feel like a heart attack.
Well,
and the heartburn lasted for like 24 hours, so I went to the doctor, and they're like, oh, well, you need to go to the hospital. You're having a heart attack. I'm like, really?
Oh, wow.
It was interesting, but they said that if I hadn't have gone to the doctor that day, that I could have ended up having a massive heart attack.
Oh, wow. Man.
So the good Lord was with me that day.
Yeah, he was, and I'm glad that you're doing better, girl, because, I worry about you being down there in Georgia, especially during the wintertime.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I'm glad.
No.
Well, I'm glad you're doing good. So, what have you got for us, girl?
I'm gonna, and I've got a, and I sent you the link, but I'm gonna leave out names because I'm actually friends with some of these people, which is very scary. I've got a friend that's married to a political fundraiser, and she's been doing it for 25 years for the Democratic Party. They put out a statement today on President Trump's Oppo research from Foreign Power, which it gets really funny because they jumped on it real quick to put this out. And it goes on, he's talking about the interview, and it says, is George Stephanopoulos or whatever his name is. President Trump would ask if he would take information from a foreign actor in the next election or alert the FBI. Mr. Trump indicated that he would take the research while initially indicating he would not call the FBI. This is a Democratic fundraiser, and they have just changed exactly what we saw on TV and what the interview said.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're already starting with the fundraiser parts of it by misconstruing exactly what was said. And then she goes in and says, I want to make one thing very clear. She says, opposition research is an item of value. As such, taking it without disclosing it on the quarterly reports would be prohibited under federal campaign finance law. as to how this is related to campaign finance law and disclosure regulations, campaigns may not solicit or accept contributions from foreign nationals. Federal law prohibits contributions, donations, expenditures, and disbursements solicited, directed, received, or made directly or indirectly from a foreign national in connection with an election. Now, what she has done by making this statement is try to make it look like it was of monetary value, when actually it's not. Words are free. So that's like stating Hillary Clinton said that she didn't wipe her servers, but the Caribbean island president said she did. Well, where did that become monetary value?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So the way that they're pushing it, they're starting from the ground up, and they're starting with their campaign fundraising people, the groups that handle all of the fundraising for their parties and for individual candidates. Because the person that actually wrote this op-ed is somebody that's been doing it for 25 years here in the state of Georgia and has worked all the way up. She even worked with President Obama's campaign. And what they're doing is the Democrats are taking the words that are put out there, they're changing it, and then they're feeding it directly as fast as they can to their campaign folks that are going to raise this money so they can go ahead and get the donations started now.
Wow.
False information.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they've already jumped on this. This group is actually, you've got the link, but you see they already jumped on it before the interview has even come out. So they're putting out false information before they've even seen it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
they're leading by lying.
Right. Well, that's typical of their of their way of doing things.
Yeah, their MO.
Well, yeah, and I just found it amazing because this as soon as that little portion of the interview come out, before it even hit the 6 o'clock news today, that was already up on their website, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. They moved very fast on that.
Right. So, in layman's terms, just kind of describe for us what this is all about.
What it's about is it's just like Trump has been saying all along: fake news, fake news. What they're doing is they're taking words he says, changing it to what they want people to believe, and they're grabbing on to the Democratic. I want to call it the Democratic mental instability train.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as something comes out, he could be doing some good. They change it around as being doing something negative.
Right.
They feed it to the Democrats, and I sit there watching on Facebook. It is the most craziest thing I have ever seen. As soon as something's said, there's got to be 50 posts hit my timeline from all my friends that are on the Democrat side, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I saw. Where are y'all getting this from?
Yep.
It's a false flag media. It's just feed people as much negativity and false information to try to drive their narrative. Now, if the president sits down and talks to somebody and they give him some dirt on somebody else, that doesn't mean that it has to be turned into the FBI. It does if it directly affects their campaign.
Right.
Because the person has that moral ground that he's got to stand on to turn that type of information over. But if they want to turn stuff over and they're just having a talk, they can't tell the president that he can't discuss something with a foreign national. If that's the case, then why is he the president, and why do we have foreign nationals?
Well, that was the whole point I was talking about earlier at the beginning of the show. They're blowing this all out of proportion, trying to say that's wrong if if he does talk to, say, Russia or any of those type of people. But, okay, it's okay for the Democrats to buy and pay for money lies from Russia. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. Because they point blank, they have been caught already that they have actually had people that were spying on Trump's campaign that were from foreign governments.
Right. Exactly.
So this is their way. This just goes back to their narrative. Hey, let's jump on this so that we can turn the eyes from this.
Right. Well,
it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's just par for the course, man. Like Pat said, they'll be known for their fruits or by their fruits, and so we're seeing it play out. Interesting insight and information there, girl.
Yeah, it was. That was amazing to even read that, but it just completely amazed me when I saw it happen as quickly as I did. And then while I'm sitting here listening to your show tonight, it's like, wait a minute, let me get this over to Greg. This is exactly what he's talking about.
Well, I appreciate you doing it.
Black and white on the Democratic fundraiser, your campaign fundraiser website, right there.
Mm-hmm.
This is the information that they're feeding out.
And
it is the craziest thing.
Yeah, and their followers are just eating it up, man.
Yep.
Like, yeah, just like they're choking, and that information is going to be oxygen,
It is, and when you were talking about foreign powers were infiltrating our government, they're already here.
Right.
Look at those that we've got. The one from Michigan, or a couple of them from Michigan, and some others up there that the anti-Semitics and the ones that are against America, the ones that are against the Christians, and they're constantly downgrading Israel. We've got foreign bodies in our government now.
Well, that's what I was opening the show with. How God is going to. He's going to send in foreigners. That's what he said. He's going to send in foreigners for this winnow, to blow the chaff. And so this may be a reason to expose a lot of this stuff, the enemy within. But like I said, when we get to the back half of this, which we're going to close with, you're going to see how we could be approaching this type of judgment, and it's about to get bloody, and these are the tactics that they're going to use to try to stay above water.
Yep.
Those are the exact tactics that they're grabbing on anything and everything. I mean, if you look at how our media is portraying everything, they have got complete control of the media.
Oh yeah.
There's people that are, and I wish I still had the list, but the people that are in the top brass in the media, most of them are related to Democratic Congress people, senators that are all in Washington now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fake news.
Got them in the pocket.
Yeah, they're married to the news anchors. They're married to it's all this big old happy vortex cult, or I guess you could say a cult vortex, a happy little village.
I told you a couple of shows ago. I'm still waiting for the Democrats to come out and complain that he's using Charmin because it has lint on it.
Well, there you go.
Well, the crazy thing is when you've abandoned reality, there's the only thing left is nuttiness. It's like if you don't want the truth, you won't receive any truth, even if it's whether it's a biblical truth or just what's right in front of your face. If you really don't want something, you'll just believe whatever you want to kind of create your own little bubble.
Well, and we got to get back to the word on this. That's what the Lord said, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Like I said last week when I was talking about, now all of a sudden they're bringing out all this information about UFOs. Last night, Tucker Carlson did a whole segment on UFOs. They're bringing out the UFO now, trying to say, yeah, they're real. This stuff has been real, and they're using that to divert attention away from what is happening. So, I mean, I'm telling you, man, the signs that we've been seeing this week, something is about to happen, and we better be buckling up for it.
Yep.
I agree. It's the war on Republicans and Christians has become one now, because now it's the Republican Party is all evangelical Christians, according to the news media.
Yeah,
that's a scary thought.
Now and you know, it just goes along with the Bible. Christians will be persecuted. We've been persecuted. You know, the Jewish have been persecuted a lot longer than we have. But anything that's got to do with Judaism and Christianity, you are now persecuted for it.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly. They call good evil and evil good.
and that's what I was getting at with the 2 Thessalonians 2. You know, it says they'll be given a strong delusion where they shall believe a lie. And so the delusion of what Lisa has told us about, the delusion about UFOs and Brother Pat said, how can UFOs be real when they're not identified?
The irony.
I mean, you know, well, let's think about that. What's the odds of that? You know, what's the odds of UFOs being real when they're not identified? I mean, that's the odds of Lou Gehrig's getting Lou Gehrig's disease. I mean, God, that's got to be 1 in 6 billion, you know.
I mean, there's always been, of course, you know, you go down through history, and it's always talked about people from other planets come. You know, and I'm not saying that they're little green men by all means, but the good Lord created the heavens and the earth. But we don't know what else He created. But I don't think He created little green men that are going to come by flying around on flying saucers and kill us with laser beams.
No, but what the UFOs are, they're the fallen angels, girl. That's what that is, and so, you know, well, to bring that up, we're seeing that too. I mean, so there is so much evil now. If you follow Steve Quayle and what he's talking about the Nephilim returning and all of that, I mean, we're seeing the beginning stages of all of this. And
oh yeah.
And I thank you for identifying their tactics, Lisa. I mean, I wasn't aware of that article that you shared. I'm glad you called in, girl.
Yeah, I thought it was just tremendous. You know, it couldn't have been coincidence that I saw that today. Especially when it wasn't a coincidence that I wasn't going to listen, because at first I didn't even know your show was going to be on tonight on a Friday night. And I just happened to come across it probably about 15 minutes after I read that article.
Well, you need to go get your blood pressure checked or that heart checked again, because it's Saturday night, not Friday night.
Yeah, Greg, usually it's you getting the day off.
My days are just ever since I got out of the hospital, I don't know what day it is anymore.
So you got an excuse. Greg doesn't.
I'm still getting used to the blood pressure medicine.
Hey, I've got to put out a disclaimer, Lisa. Friends, if y'all are not, if you're a new listener, don't think I'm being crude or rude to Sister Lisa. We go back a long way, and so I had to help her through a traumatic event about 4 or 5 years ago when that polar vortex hit Atlanta, Georgia, and she was stuck out on the highway.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Well, yeah, that's
great.
That's a good deal, man. Y'all had 4-wheel drive vehicles and didn't know what to do with them, didn't you?
Well, because too many Northerners live in here now.
That's what it is, man.
As Southerners, when we get that polar vortex, it only comes through every 15 years. We're not about to get out on the road. We just stay home.
There you go. Now, when they mention polar vortex, they roll the sidewalks up, and it's just like, my goodness. But anyway, well, Lisa, listen, man, hang on the line with us. We're going to have to move on because we're running up on the clock, and I got to get a few more things done. But, girl, again, I am just so tickled to death to hear from you.
Well, I'm glad to be able to call in again, brother.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to talk to me. You hadn't talked to me in a long time.
I know it. I've been listening.
Well, listen, you take care, girl, and take them nitro pills and get back in business because we need you out there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Okay.
And that was Sister Lisa down there in Georgia. Sweetheart, man, a great person, and a good lady to have on your side, especially when things go awry. She's a patriot and a heavy hitter out here in the world. So, all right, Chuck, buddy, we're gonna have to. Let me. I was thinking we may have to go into overtime, but if I can cover these things real quick, we won't have to, and then we can close it out. Well, yeah, we will, because I got to close it out with the back half of this. Chuck, did you hear about what's going on in Italy, man, with the locusts?
I have not heard that.
Well, okay. Well, let me back up a little bit. I'm going to go down a path now. People, just bear with me. Chuck, did you ever listen to Art Bell years ago?
Yeah, a couple times I heard him. I know a lot of people that listened to him. I wasn't really into any of the stuff I'm into now when I'd heard about him, but yeah, I've heard of him. Okay.
Well, the reason I bring him up is because I don't know at what extent you've listened to Art Bell, but he, I mean, you know, he had some crazy guests on, of course. But two people that really stand out was Major Ed Dames and Edgar Casey. Are you familiar with those, Chuck?
I think I've heard them mentioned before, but I'm not familiar with them.
Okay. Well, 20 years ago, back when I was running Coast to Coast and running the graveyard shift, I'd listen to Art Bell every single night. And from time to time, he would have on Edgar Casey and Major Ed Dames. And I think Edgar Casey has already passed away. I'm not sure about Ed Dames. I'm sure he has too. But anyway, they were in the military, and they were involved in what they would call remote viewing. I don't know the intricacies of remote viewing, okay? But in layman's terms, you know, in Cheatham County terms, it is basically you're able, I don't know if they do it through chemicals or if they are in touch with their third eye in their brain, or it's some kind of military ops where they are able to peer into the future, okay? And so Major Ed Dames and Edgar Casey has given us things to be watching. You know, they're the ones that start talking about how the United States would look if we had a major earthquake and the Great Lakes emptied out into the Mississippi Valley and blah, 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 and how it would separate the land. Anyway, they were telling us all, and of course they weren't dropping dates, but there's one thing that stuck out in my mind that I remembered hearing was Edgar Casey said that when we see Mount Etna in Italy erupt and then that volcano in France erupt, that's when it's all going to start happening. And I believe it was last week, Mount Etna in Italy, I talked about it. Mount Etna has started erupting, and that volcano that he has talked about in France is now showing signs of erupting as well. Now, this week, we had that earthquake that hit Cleveland. It was a 4.0. But the same day, just a few hours later, a mountain over in North Carolina, over there at mile marker 15 in the gorge, collapsed, and it fell down on I-40, and I-40's closed in North Carolina. So, you know, and now we have this 7.4 that has hit over off the coast of New Zealand, and so we have Mount Etna erupting, and now this volcano in France appears that it's about to erupt. Now, whether it will or not, I don't know. So I'm not putting any validity into Major Ed Dames and Edgar Casey and those people, but it is interesting what they said 20 years ago, and it's actually appearing as though these two volcanoes are going to erupt. And look at the Mississippi River right now. Look at the flooding going on right now. And now we're having earthquakes along the Great Lakes up there. I mean, it's something to consider. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not putting any faith in them. I'm just saying. So anyway, sorry about that, Chuck. I'm like you now. I'm going down rabbit holes tonight, man.
See, I've been good, and I've been containing myself. Of course, a lot of that's because you're doing the talking, so that makes it a little easier, but I'll take some credit for that, for not going down the rabbit hole this time.
well, I'm going down the rabbit holes tonight. So we need to keep an eye on that volcano, but in France. Okay, but anyway, when I started the show, I was talking about Jeremiah chapter 51 and how, because there is some other things that are happening that God warned us about, is, and Sister Jamie alerted me to this, and I didn't even know about it until she had mentioned it. But anyway, how God was talking about this destroyer that's coming in, and then I go back and I remember what Edgar Casey said when we have an earthquake on the Great Lakes with these volcanoes about to erupt, and how Babylon is going to be the one that's going to be affected by this. And, is Babylon going to be America? Is Babylon the Vatican? Is Babylon the whole? Is the last day Babylon a representation as the whole? And so in Italy, where the Vatican is, a Babylonian-style area, they're having their volcano. And listen to what has happened this week in Italy, along with this volcanic eruption.
In what some are describing as a plague of biblical proportions, the island of Sardinia is seeing millions and millions of locusts swarm the farmlands, and they're saying that combination of weather events have been right to lead up to an event like this, and right now it's seriously affecting the farmers' livestock. It's crushing the production. You add this to the list of food shortages around the globe, all the crops that have been damaged one way or another by one thing or another. At this point, this has gotten out of control. They're saying that it's the worst at least in 6 decades. 6,200 acres or 2,500 hectares of agricultural land have been ate up or destroyed by these locusts. As they say, they have sprung up in some of these fallow or lower land fields, and then they move on to the agriculture lands to eat, and then they just explode in numbers. Now, Italy, the mainland Italy, they're seeing a problem too with these little bugs that have been destroying the fruit trees. So that too is happening, attacking all the fruit trees in that region. So you have the farmlands, fruit trees, Italy, and in this island region getting attacked massively.
Yeah, man. Plagues of Egypt returning in the last days, man. That's pretty crazy. Yeah. So, okay, one more thing, Chuck, and then I'm going to share this little bit of Jeremiah. Then me and you are going to close it out. All right. Okay, so, with all of this flooding here, earthquakes, plague of locust in Italy and all of that, over in India, Sister Jamie alerted me to this. I didn't even know about this, but in India, a heat wave is soaring up to 123 degrees. It's already killed 36 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of India's longest and most intense heat waves in decades, with temperatures reaching 123 degrees. 36 lives have been claimed since it began in May. Yeah, and the government has warned that the suffering might continue as the arrival of monsoon rains has been delayed. And that's what the Bible told us, Chuck, in the last days, that the sun's going to get so hot that it's going to scorch men.
Wow.
It's going to scorch the grass. And so we're seeing all of this happen. All right, let me finish up with this, and then me and you will take them home. So we know the destroyer is coming. We've already figured out that this judgment is coming, and God is warning us to leave, to not partake in the sins of Babylon, or we will meet the same fate. And so apparently there is a way of escape, and that way of escape is through Jesus. He is the only way. He is the truth. He is the life. He is the living water. And how interesting, Chuck. You remember when Moses was leading the children of Israel out through the wilderness, and water came from the rock because they were thirsty, and God had water come from the rock. Now, Moses didn't obey God on how to get the water from the rock. But the water did come from the rock. And, the Old Testament, it was living water that came from the rock. And then now in the New Testament, Christ is the rock, and he tells us he is the living water.
Yep.
And so, it's just, well, anyway, we're told not to partake in Babylon's sin, to get out of it, repent, give your life back to Christ, seek shelter under the wing of the Almighty, because here's what's coming. Sharpen the arrows, take up the shields. The Lord is stirring up the kings. Now, Chuck, does it appear that the kings of the world are getting stirred right now?
I would say that. I think you could say that.
You could.
It's incredible because, I think if everybody could have the right perspective as far as, a spiritual perspective, and all of us, the more perspective we have spiritually, the more sense all this stuff makes, because the Lord, His Holy Spirit will bring the scriptures like what we're sharing. We're kind of tying it all in, how the Lord has already told us this was going to happen in the end. He already talked about the plagues, the pestilence, and if, like I was telling you, sometimes people will go, oh, well, that's crazy. You're like one of those people that every time something bad happens, you think it's some biblical thing, or some have some kind of like judgment, or like they'll say that. But here's the thing: it's not a far-fetched thing to think that that's what's going on, because of the spiritual climate of the whole earth, but specifically talking about our country. So I don't think it's I don't know how you'd say it. It's not getting being sensational to say that. It really actually is. Common sense when you look at what's going on spiritually. So,
amen. Well, they're coming to get you, Chuck.
You hear the siren in the background?
Oh yeah, it just about outmodulated.
Well, it's we know our time's coming, right? Eventually.
That's right. Hey, that might be a sign from God, because listen to what I'm going to read next. That's fascinating. That may have been the hand of God here, because listen up. The Lord is stirring up the kings. Now, back in these days, in Jeremiah's days, he was referring to the kings of the Medes, because his purpose is to destroy Babylon. So listen, friends. Okay, God is stirring up the kings. China, they're mad at us. Iran, they're mad at us. Look at all the enemies that are against us that God is stirring up against us, people. Listen close now. The Lord has stirred up the kings of the Medes, because his purpose is to destroy Babylon. The Lord will take vengeance for his temple. Lift up a banner against the walls of Babylon. Reinforce the guard, station the watchman. Prepare an ambush. The Lord will carry out his purpose, his decree against the people of Babylon. You who live by many waters and are rich in treasures, your end has come, the time for you to be cut off. The Lord Almighty has sworn by himself, I will surely fill you with men as with a swarm of locusts. As with a swarm of locusts, he used as an analogy. Amen. The Lord Almighty has sworn by himself. So there are kings now in our modern day Babylon that are being stirred up around us, friends. And I believe we should take these signs, the plagues of locust, okay? All of the things that we're seeing that God told us. There's more in Jeremiah 51, but Chuck just kept going down too many rabbit holes tonight, and we didn't.
I'll try to behave myself next time.
But all right, Chuck. So, friends, basically what the point is that yes, things are progressing. Things are getting worse. Things are getting violent now. People are dying because of this. But yet, at the same time, we're seeing the things God told us were coming already happening in our nation. So to get back to the beginning, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to take part and partake in the sins of Babylon, or are you going to heed the warning of the watchman and remove yourselves from the sins of Babylon, turn to the healer, the rock, the living water, repent, give your life back to Jesus Christ, and get you and your family tucked under the wing of the Almighty, because I'm telling you, friends, there is judgment coming. There is too much happening too fast now to avoid it. What say you, Chuck?
That's right. Well, I agree with that, man. I really believe that, shame is always a horrible thing to feel in the presence of people, but what if you're in the presence of God? How horrible would that be to feel the shame because you didn't heed the words that were spoken by God and by the watchmen that were speaking in God's behalf to encourage people to listen to God? Because it's just so sad, because this whole world is coming to nothing. It's going to burn up. It's going to be consumed. And it just makes so much sense to put your trust in God, because nobody wants to waste their life. I mean, what a horrible thing to get at the end of your life and realize you've wasted it. How much more spiritually to get at the end of your life and realize, wow, even if you're a Christian and you're still going to heaven, don't waste your life. Do what God's calling you to do. This life is so short. Even if you live your whole life, it's still short. But we know that the Lord's coming back very soon, so we probably won't even end up finishing our life. But my point is, we need to listen to God and make the most out of the time that He has so graciously given us.
Amen. And just like Brother Pat said, get your house in order and keep your eyes peeled. And I did catch that earlier, Pat. I was cracking up, man. I'm glad you got your Reynolds wrap. That was awesome, man. That's back when we was talking about Art Bell. That's awesome. So, all right, friends. Well, this is where we are. So, getting back to the beginning of the show, here's the question: the destroyer is coming. The destroyer is coming, and he's coming to Winnow. The title of the show: the destroyer is coming to Winnow, which means to blow the grain to remove the chaff. So the question tonight is: are you the chaff? Are you the poison? Are you the toxic? Or are you going to make the decision tonight to be the wheat? You're being called to come to Jesus. Chuck, won't you close us in prayer, brother?
All right. Dear Lord, I just thank you for the awesome opportunity to speak about your word, Lord. It's such an awesome blessing, Lord, to share truth with people. I pray, Lord, that you would direct our hearts and our minds, that we'd only desire the truth, Lord, that we'd be willing to examine ourselves in the light of your word. And no matter what we see, we would be willing to acknowledge it, Lord, and that we would get right with you in the areas we need to get right with you. And that we would recognize, Lord, just the intensity or the urgency of the hour, Lord, that we're so close to you coming back. We can see the world going crazy. We can see it going into darkness and descending. We pray for everybody, Lord, who doesn't know you, even those who have aligned themselves with the devil to do these things. Lord, we just pray that they would get saved, they would recognize that they're being deceived, that they're being used by the devil, and that they would repent, Lord. That way they can go to heaven, Lord. My desire is for every soul to be saved, just like yours is, Lord. You put that desire in me. Lord, may the actions of others, these people, the bad things they've done, may that be judged, but may the people's souls be saved, Lord God. That way justice can happen, but also mercy can be there. Lord, we want to see them in heaven, Lord. We know they won't be doing that stuff in heaven because they'll acknowledge that it's wrong and turn from it. Lord, and we pray for ourselves, our brothers and sisters, Lord, that know you, that we would get right and we would walk with you, and we would be the difference, Lord, that we would like to see in the world, that we would be a light, Lord, that what you've called us to do, we wouldn't waste our lives, Lord. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Amen, brother. Thank you, sir.
Sure, brother. Anytime, man. It's an honor.
Well, Chuck, so you going to go back to part-time work next week?
Something like that. My wife really likes it when I get those hours. And I guess, truth be told, I'm really thankful for the financial increase when it does come, because it does help us to get closer to being out of debt. So I can't just say that my wife's the only one that's excited about it, but I do reap some of the benefit of her being excited, as all men reap the benefit of their wives being happy, especially when it comes to finances.
Amen, brother. Well, speaking of wives being happy, I must close the show now.
I understand.
All right. Well, Chuck, man, it's good to hear from you. I've missed you, old bud.
Yeah, but it's really cool to be on the show, man. I've missed it.
Yeah, I've missed having you, man. And people's been asking about you, and I've just been telling them I don't know what his deal is. No, I'm kidding, man.
Such a pal.
Hey, friends like me, who needs enemies? Enemies.
Yeah. That's right. Well, I won't go that far, but.
All right, Chuck. Well, man, listen, good to have you. Good to hear from you. Is everybody doing good on your end?
Yeah, they're doing really good, man. We've just been really pressing in prayer, and just the Lord's been really good to just bless our family. So I can't complain at all.
All right, well, good deal. We'll be sure and tell Chad and all of them I love them and miss them, because I got to roll out in the morning. So until next time, I am Old Smokehouse.
And I'm Chuck Bird.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Smokehouse.
To talk to Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial 252-380, followed by the pound sign. Call in to join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.